This video is a walkthrough of all the Omnichannel Panel's operational functions. To help us demonstrate the panel, we're going to need an agent. Let me introduce you to Debbie. Debbie uses the panel to take emails from the sales queue and the info queue. And of course, by using the panel to take the emails, the management are able to report on Debbie's email activity regarding those two groups. So let's start by opening the panel. The panel is a Windows desktop application. Just open it like you would any other Windows application. The first thing you need to do is enter the server address of the analytics platform, followed by, of course, the agent's username and password. When logging into the panel, the agent has a couple of options. The first is to open the panel and not be signed into any queues or groups, or the second one is the last active option, which will sign the agents into the groups that they last signed out of. So in this instance, Debbie's going to select none because she's not quite ready to start taking emails yet. So the main features on the panel are the 3 channel tiles, each tile corresponding to a different type of channel: email, calls and chat. So the first thing that Debbie does is uses the panel to sign into those groups. And we can see here on the panel that the channels associated with each of those groups have now become active. So it's not too long before emails start coming into the queues. And we can see on the panel that the email tile not only notifies Debbie of waiting emails, but how many there are waiting. So Debbie clicks on the email tile to take the longest waiting email, which is then delivered directly into Debbie's inbox. And you can also see that the panel has been placed into a busy email state. Opening up the email, we can see that the from address is that of the group where Debbie took the email from. So when agents are part of more than one group, it's easy to keep track of which group an agent has taken an email from. And the other thing we can notice is this little reference number, which is added by the system to be able to keep track of the email. This was not added by the original sender. So Debbie's going to reply to Mr. Smith by clicking reply on the email. And we can see that the reply address of the email is the group where Debbie took the email from. In order to be able to report on the agent actions and keep track of the email, the life cycle of the email must be complete, and that is, the email must go from the group to the agent and always be returned to the group it came from, no matter what action the agent wants to perform. Once back in the group mailbox, the system then knows what to do with that email and will act accordingly. But that cycle must always be completed. So, replying back to the group, Debbie responds to Mr. Smith and sends the email. After completing the email, Debbie has some administration to take care of, so she uses the panel to place herself in wrap-up for a short time. And then when she's finished, uses the panel to make herself available again. So taking a look at the email that's gone back to Mr. Smith, we can see that the from address is that of the group where he first sent the email. This allows the email address of the agent to be any email address whatsoever. It does not have to be associated with the platform or the system. So, being happy with the service he's received, Mr. Smith replies to the email, and again you'll see that Mr. Smith is replying to the sales group. Mr. Smith hits sends, and the email goes back to the sales group. Debbie clicks on the email tile to take the next longest waiting email. Opening up the email, again we can see which group this email has come from. However, on reading this email, she realises that due to this being a complaint, the email needs to be escalated and therefore forwarded to her supervisor. It's possible for agents to forward emails to any email address they want, but they must still always reply to the originating group mailbox. However, to forward the email, Debbie simply adds the tag #FWD followed by the intended recipient's email address, in this case being her supervisor, then hits send. The email then goes back to the group mailbox, but the FWD instruction then tells the group mailbox to forward the original email to the supervisor. Now at this point it's worth knowing that any operation to do with that email is no longer being recorded on the analytics platform. But if we have a look at the email received by the supervisor, we can see that it specifies which group mailbox it came from. However, when the supervisor hits reply, the to address is now that of the originating sender, so the supervisor can do whatever she needs to do with this email. So moving on, Debbie then takes the next longest waiting email, which just happens to be Mr. Smith's thank you email. Debbie's now happy that this case has been resolved and that Mr. Smith doesn't need a response, so she replies to the group mailbox with the tag #NRN, which stands for no response needed, then clicks send. When the group mailbox receives that email, it now knows to complete the email cycle, which will take Debbie out of the busy state, place her in available, and add any corresponding analytics to the platform regarding Debbie's activity with that email. So it's now lunchtime. Debbie's going to go out to lunch, so she uses the panel to change her state to not available with the out to lunch reason. And we can see there that the panel is now in a not available state, stating out to lunch. On Debbie's return, she simply uses the panel to make herself available again. So throughout the afternoon, more emails come into the group mailboxes. And again, Debbie uses the panel to take the longest waiting email. On opening up this email, Debbie can see that it's a spam email and doesn't need any further correspondence. However, instead of replying to the group mailbox, Debbie inadvertently deletes the email, which isn't that big a problem. Debbie, realising her mistake, could go into the deleted folder and reply to the group mailbox from there with the #NRN tag. However, unfortunately, Debbie can no longer find this email, and as a result cannot complete the email cycle, and also Debbie is now left in a state of email busy because the system is thinking that she is still dealing with an email. So in order to force the panel back into an available state and force the email back into the original group, Debbie simply signs out of the current groups. This would then force any emails that Debbie hasn't completed the cycle of back into the originating group. Then all she has to do is sign back into the groups and start taking emails again. So Debbie clicks on the email tile, the email's delivered back to her, and this time Debbie responds to the group mailbox with the no response needed tag, which completes that email cycle and of course then makes Debbie available to take other emails. It's now home time, so Debbie exits the panel by clicking on the exit button. When signing out of the panel, agents are able to make one of two choices. The first choice being keep signed into all groups. Should the agent now be just signed into, say, cold groups, and they decided they no longer want to have the panel open, they can close the panel but still take calls in those groups as they would normally. Or in this instance, because it's home time, Debbie's going to choose the sign out of all groups, which automatically signs Debbie out of all the queues when she closes the panel.